What if I told you that one of the shortest manga in the entire A Certain Magical Index franchise is also one of the best? A Certain Scientific Dark Matter is only a single volume long, and yet it's debatably the second best spin-off in the entire series. The best spin-off obviously being Railgun. However, there are some aspects of Dark Matter that outshine even Railgun, and that's what I'm here to talk about. As the great philosopher Socrates once said, "When an author cooks a spin-off so well that it rivals the original, he is no longer a writer, he is a chef of destiny." And if that's true, then Kazuma Kamachi might just be the greatest chef of all time. I'm Kisaki, and today I'm going to scientifically prove why A Certain Scientific Dark Matter, despite being incredibly short, is actually peak fiction, and why it made me appreciate the entire Index franchise even more. If you enjoy anime and manga breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Do it not just for me, but for my master, because trust me, Socrates would be very disappointed if you didn't subscribe. He's my master, yet he beats me whenever I don't gain at least one new subscriber every day. So please do it for me, Kisaki, your greatest nakama. Before we get into why A Certain Scientific Dark Matter is peak, we need to understand the world it comes from. The A Certain Magical Index franchise is set in Academy City, a technologically advanced hub where science has progressed to the point of creating espers, individuals with supernatural abilities derived from calculation and personal reality. What makes the series great isn't just the powers or the fights, but the way it blends science and magic into a single cohesive world while constantly exploring themes of identity, morality, and what it means to hold power. It's a universe filled with layered characters, intersecting storylines, and a surprisingly philosophical core that elevates it far beyond a typical action series. At the center of that world is Accelerator, who is not just the strongest esper in Academy City, but arguably one of the most compelling characters in modern fiction. On the surface, he comes across as chaotic, arrogant, and destructive, someone who fully embraces his role as the most powerful. But underneath that is a deeply broken individual shaped by trauma, isolation, and the consequences of being treated as a weapon rather than a person. In a lot of ways, he's like a better-written version of Shadow the Hedgehog, someone who is incredibly entertaining because of his personality and raw presence, but also carries a level of emotional and psychological depth that makes his journey genuinely impactful. Accelerator's character arc is built around transformation. He starts as someone who believes strength is the only thing that defines him, someone who distances himself from humanity because he thinks it's easier that way. But over time, especially after the events involving Last Order, he begins to change. He learns responsibility, begins to protect others, and slowly redefines what strength actually means. That evolution, from a symbol of destruction to someone striving for redemption, is what makes him so memorable. Now within Academy City, power is ranked, and Accelerator sits firmly at the top as the #1 esper. Right below him is Kakine Teitoku, the #2 esper, and one of the most fascinating antagonists in the series. Kakine's ability, Dark Matter, allows him to create substances that don't exist in the natural world, effectively giving him near-limitless creative and destructive potential. Unlike Accelerator, whose power is based on calculation and reflection, Kakine's power feels almost godlike in its flexibility, which already sets him apart in terms of how he approaches combat and existence itself. Kakine's story leading into the Dark Matter manga is one of ambition, frustration, and identity. Being the second strongest in a city obsessed with rankings means that no matter what he does, he's always living in Accelerator's shadow. That creates a deep resentment within him, not just toward Accelerator as a person, but toward the entire system that places him second. He doesn't just want power, he wants recognition, validation, and ultimately, to prove that he deserves to stand at the top. This is where his relationship with Accelerator becomes so important. Kakine doesn't just hate Accelerator because he's stronger, he hates what Accelerator represents. Accelerator is everything Kakine wants to surpass, but also everything he can't ignore. Their dynamic isn't just rivalry, it's philosophical. Accelerator represents overwhelming, absolute power, while Kakine represents potential, creativity, and rebellion against limitation. That clash makes their interactions incredibly intense. All of this builds into the Battle Royale arc of Index, where multiple factions within Academy City collide in a chaotic struggle for power and con. During this arc, Kakine finally confronts Accelerator directly, leading to one of the most memorable fights in the series. Despite Kakin's incredible ability, Accelerator ultimately overwhelms him, reinforcing his position as the strongest while also shattering Kakin's sense of superiority. It's a brutal, defining moment that cements both characters' roles in the story. So why did Kazuma Kamachi decide to create A Certain Scientific Dark Matter as a spin-off? The answer lies in Kakine himself. While Accelerator had already received extensive development and even his own spin-off, Kakine remained relatively underexplored despite his importance. Kamachi clearly saw the potential in his character and wanted to expand on it to show who Kakine was beyond just the number 2. And that's exactly what this manga does. A Certain Scientific Dark Matter acts as a prequel to the Battle Royale arc, giving us a deeper look into Kakine's mindset, motivations, and the environment that shaped him. It adds context to his actions, making him more than just an antagonist and turning him into a fully realized character. By the time you revisit his confrontation with Accelerator after reading this, it hits differently, because you understand what's driving him on a much deeper level. And that's why this short, single-volume story matters so much more than its length would suggest. Before I read A Certain Scientific Dark Matter, I'll be honest, I didn't take Kakine Teitoku that seriously as a character. He came across as interesting conceptually, but in execution, he felt a bit off. His personality, his over-the-top confidence, and even parts of his dialogue made him seem more like a flashy antagonist than a truly grounded or emotionally compelling one. Compared to someone like Accelerator, who had already gone through layers of development and transformation, Kakine felt like he was missing something. He had the power, he had the presence, but he didn't quite have the depth. At least, that's what I thought at the time. But after reading this manga, my entire perspective changed. Not only do I understand Kakine now, I actually sympathize with him. The story reframes his arrogance, his frustration, and even his aggression as the result of a very specific environment and set of experiences. He's not just the number 2 trying to surpass Accelerator anymore. He's someone navigating a system that defines his entire existence by a ranking he can't escape. When you see the world from his perspective, his actions stop feeling exaggerated and start feeling inevitable. That shift from dismissal to understanding is exactly what makes this spin-off so powerful. The premise of A Certain Scientific Dark Matter is surprisingly grounded, especially for a series known for its complex power systems and large-scale conflicts. Instead of focusing on massive citywide events, the story zooms in on Kakine himself and places him in a situation that forces him to confront both his role in Academy City and his own sense of identity. He becomes involved in a smaller-scale conflict involving a young girl and a group of antagonists, and what starts as a seemingly simple mission quickly turns into something more personal. What makes this premise so effective is how it contrasts Kakine's overwhelming power with the simplicity of the situation. He's someone who can create entirely new forms of matter, someone who exists at the absolute peak of Academy City's hierarchy, yet he's placed in a scenario that doesn't require domination, it requires choice. Throughout the story, we see glimpses of how Kakine operates when he isn't just trying to prove himself as the strongest. We see how he thinks, how he reacts, and most importantly, how he justifies his actions. The manga also does an excellent job of highlighting the darker side of Academy City. It reinforces the idea that this is a place where children are turned into experiments, where power is cultivated without regard for morality, and where individuals like Kakine are shaped into weapons long before they're allowed to become people. By placing Kakine in this environment, and giving us a closer look at his interactions within it, the story adds layers to his character that simply weren't visible before. By the time the manga ends, Kakine no longer feels like a silly or exaggerated villain. He feels like a product of his world, someone who was given immense power without guidance, placed into a system that values results over humanity, and left to figure out his own meaning within it. And when you go back to the Battle Royale arc after understanding all of this, his actions hit completely differently. That's what makes this story so effective. It doesn't change who Kakine is, it reveals who he always was. And with that out of the way, let's get into what actually takes place in this incredible story. Instead of telling a large-scale story, A Certain Scientific Dark Matter focuses on something much smaller and far more personal. It follows Kakine Teitoku as he becomes involved with Yuzuriha Ringo, a powerless girl caught in Academy City's darker side, where scientists treat children as tools for experimentation. Yuzuriha is one of those victims. She's implied to have been modified through experimentation, with her mind altered in a way that affects how she reacts under stress, especially in violent situations, where her personality shifts into something colder, more detached. It's a subtle but disturbing reflection of what Academy City does to people. It doesn't just use them, it reshapes them. Kakine's role in all of this is what makes the story so compelling. He doesn't act like a hero. He steps in, eliminates threats with overwhelming precision, and moves on. His dark matter ability feels less like power and more like a violation of reality itself. But through his interactions with Yuzuriha, you start to see something different, small moments where he acknowledges her, where his actions go beyond pure calculation. And that's where the emotional core of the story lies. Because Yuzuriha doesn't see Kakine as a monster. She sees him as beautiful. Not just because of his power, but because of his wings, and more importantly, because of the quiet, almost invisible kindness in the way he treats her. In a world that constantly reduces her to an experiment, Kakine is one of the only people who recognizes her existence. And that's what makes the ending hit so hard. Because despite everything, despite the potential for change, despite the subtle hints that Kakine could become something more, Yuzuriha dies. And with her, that possibility dies too. This is what makes the story such a powerful dark parallel to Accelerator. Both Kakine and Accelerator are products of the same system. Both are overwhelmingly powerful. Both are given someone fragile to protect. But where Accelerator is able to change, because Last Order survives and gives him a reason to, Kakine is. Not because he's incapable, but because he's too late. That's the tragedy. Kakine had the potential to redeem himself in the same way Accelerator did. He was already starting to change, even if he didn't fully understand it. But Yuzuriha's death cuts that path off completely. And the dramatic irony is brutal. Two people, shaped by the same world, walking almost identical paths, except one was just a little more fortunate. One got the chance to become better, the other lost it. By the end of the story, Kakine hasn't transformed. He hasn't been redeemed, but you can see what he could have been. And that unrealized potential, more than anything, is what makes his story so tragic. The story ends quietly. The corrupt system of Academy City remains. Yuzuriha dies and Kakine walks away once again, a man who lost his only opportunity at redemption. This time that departure carries more weight, because now we understand him differently. He is not just number two. He is not just a rival to Accelerator. He is someone caught between roles, between being a weapon and being something more. Someone who operates within a broken system, but isn't entirely consumed by it. And through Kakine Teitoku, it gives an answer that is as unsettling as it is compelling. You survive, you choose. And sometimes, even in a world that strips away everything else, that choice is the only thing you have left. What makes a certain scientific dark matter so powerful isn't just the events that happen, it's the quiet, underlying tragedy that defines Kakine Teitoku as a character. This manga reframes him entirely, not as a loud, overconfident antagonist, but as someone deeply shaped and ultimately limited by the system that created him. His story isn't about redemption in the traditional sense. It's about potential that never fully had the chance to become something more. At the center of that tragedy is his relationship with Yuzuriha Ringo. What makes their dynamic so compelling is how subtle it is. Kakine never openly expresses care in a conventional way. There are no dramatic declarations, no clear emotional breakthroughs. But through his actions, through the way he chooses to intervene, the way he acknowledges Yuzuriha's existence, and the way he disrupts the system around her, you can see something forming. Not quite compassion, not quite protection, but something close enough to matter. And that's what makes it tragic. Because Kakine doesn't fully understand what he's doing. He doesn't have the framework to process it. He wasn't shaped to protect people. He was shaped to dominate, to calculate, to exist at the top of a hierarchy that values power above all else. So when he's placed in a situation that requires something more human, something softer, something grounded in empathy, he struggles. Not because he's incapable, but because no one ever taught him how. This is where the parallel to Accelerator becomes incredibly powerful. Accelerator also had someone to protect, Last Order, but unlike Kakine Excel, Accelerator was forced to confront his own actions, to face the consequences of who he had been, and to change. His relationship with Last Order became the catalyst for his transformation. It gave him a direction, a purpose, and ultimately, a way to redefine what strength meant. Kakine never gets that same opportunity. Yuzuriha becomes his parallel to Last Order, a fragile human presence in a world that reduces people to numbers and functions. But where Accelerator learns to protect, Kakine exists in a space where protection is unclear, undefined, and ultimately incomplete. He acts, he intervenes, he disrupts, but he never fully crosses that line into becoming something more. And in that sense, he fails, Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but in a quiet, inevitable one. He fails to become what he could have been. That's the tragedy. Because you can see the possibility. You can see the moments where something could have changed, where a different version of Kakine might have emerged. But those moments pass, not because he chooses to reject them, but because he doesn't fully understand them. He exists too deeply within the system that created him to step outside of it completely. And that contrast with Accelerator is what makes both characters stronger. Accelerator represents transformation, the idea that even someone who has done terrible things can change, can grow, can find meaning in protecting others. Kakine represents the opposite, the idea that without the right circumstances, without the right push, even someone with the potential to change might never get there. It's not that Kakine is worse, it's that he's unfinished. And when you take this understanding back to the Battle Royale arc, everything changes. Kakine's actions are no longer just the result of arrogance or ambition. They become the result of a character who was never given the chance to fully evolve. His hatred toward Accelerator isn't just about ranking or power anymore. It's about something deeper, something more personal. Whether he consciously realizes it or not, Accelerator represents the path Kakine never took. That makes their confrontation feel less like a simple clash of strength and more like a collision of two different outcomes. Two people shaped by the same world who ended up in completely different places. And that's why A Certain Scientific Dark Matter works so well as a prequel. It doesn't just add information, it adds meaning. It recontextualizes everything that comes after it, making the Battle Royale arc feel more intense, more emotional, and far more tragic than it did before. Even as a single volume, the story is consistently engaging, tense, and purposeful. There's no wasted space, no unnecessary filler, just a focused exploration of one character and the world that shaped him. And by the end of it, Kakine Teitoku is no longer just number 2. He's one of the most quietly tragic characters in the entire Index franchise. As the great philosopher Socrates once said, "When a man loses what he never understood he had, the tragedy is not in the loss, but in the realization that it could have changed him." And that perfectly captures the beauty and tragedy of Kakine Teitoku. The death of Yuzuriha Ringo isn't just a plot point, it's a turning point in how we see him. It reframes his entire character, showing us that beneath all the power, arrogance, and detachment, there was a path he could have taken but never fully understood. That's what makes his story hit so hard. Not just what happened, but what could have been. I'm Kisaki. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe for more manga content like this. Us manga bros have to stick together, so seriously, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments if you want more Index videos. Also, I've been thinking about making a Discord or something, so tell me if that's something you'd be interested in. And remember, learn chemistry, learn philosophy, learn something new every single day. Because that would make both me and my master Socrates very happy. Also, I'm just saying, if I get at least 20 new subscribers from this video, my master Socrates won't beat me up. And that would make me extremely happy.